Welcome to this session, which is one of 4 on resilience. Now, in this section, we're going to consider our supportive connections, not just how many there are of them, but the quality of our relationships. Humans have developed to function well in communities, to learn from each other and to cooperate together. There's a strength in our connections, and this can be applied to our ability to maintain robust attitudes in the face of adversity. Because one of our greatest resources is to be able to openly seek support from others rather than try to cope all by ourselves, to discuss stressful events, be listened to and given fresh ideas, and sharing out some of the responsibilities. Hearing our concerns reflected back by someone else can actually give them perspective, appreciate what we have rather than concentrating on what's not going so well. Connecting produces an endorphin rush, which is why it's one of the 5 ways of well-being that were developed by the New Economic Foundation. They researched the evidence behind why one person might have better well-being than another, and here is the link through. We know that when someone is really struggling, they often avoid reaching out for support, not wanting to spread the negativity that they're experiencing. Withdrawal can be an early sign of poor mental health. That is when reaching out to someone who you can see beginning to do this can be the kindest thing anyone could do. The most powerful lasting connections occur when there is equality in the relationship. All parties are mutually benefiting from being together. Spend a little time now considering all those who are on your side. Have you been investing time in nurturing these relationships? Do you spend time on certain relationships which are not always in your best interest? And who is in your circle of support? You might like to draw a spidergram of your connections and consider the balance between them. Being able to actively listen is a skill that we rarely are taught at school. We're asked to do it a lot, and it may have been that it was part of your training. It's often perceived as a passive process, even though 45% of all communication is channeled this way. We do spend many years learning the other skills, such as reading and writing and speaking. Being able to really listen can be valuable to both parties involved, building stronger relationships, diffusing emotional misunderstandings, and helping people to feel understood. So there's a short questionnaire here which you might like to refresh your listening skills, considering the questions from both a professional and a personal point of view. Take a couple of minutes to ask yourself the questions and answer always, often, sometimes, rarely, or never to each of the questions. So how did you do? You could probably see that there was a shift halfway through from answers orientated mainly towards the right to those mainly to the left. And if that happened in your responses, then congratulations, you are a good listener. Let us look at some of the more common thinking traps that can impact our connections with others. We could start with developing trusting and open relationships, a key part of our resilience toolkit. It plays a pivotal role in maintaining honest connections. However, those who've been let down badly by someone in the past may feel that to protect themselves from being vulnerable again, they need to avoid opening up to someone new. They may even set tests or traps to see if someone is fully on their side. What may be happening here is black and white thinking. In this example, all people are bad, or I'm going to be let down again, or that person doesn't agree with my views and therefore they're not on my side, are three common thoughts that can stop people from developing close friendships, even when it may be mutually beneficial. No one is all good or all bad, of course, or indeed all trustworthy or not. If we can try to understand why someone behaves in a certain way without jumping to conclusions, and see things from their viewpoint rather than defensively, then our relationships naturally become more stable. When we feel stressed, we may find that we are trying to take control of everything around us, as discussed in the adaptability section, not trusting others to do things the way that we want. However, delegation at this point can be helpful in offloading some of our responsibilities, but we often don't. Instead, we think, it'll take too much time to teach them how to do it, and I might not like how they do it, and I'll just have to redo it. You can see this in teams and households where one person is doing much more of the work whilst the others let them, even though they're capable of taking on some of the load and would actually benefit from learning how to do the task. If this resonates with you, I'd like you to imagine the passage through life as if you were rowing a small boat slightly upstream. It can sometimes be quite tiring. Now I want you to look behind and see how many people are in your rowing boat. Anyone who is young or vulnerable may need your help to take them upstream, but is there anyone who might be ready to get into their own boat and row upstream themselves? Or is there anyone that you could ask to take one of the oars from you? A second area that impacts our connection is comparing ourselves to others and despairing. Social media can exacerbate these thoughts, which is why we're covering it later in this section. A common example of this is when someone becomes a parent and they only look at those who appear to be coping well and they believe have some perfect control over their lives. Of course, this standard is a fantasy and can never be actually reached. We're even able to understand that there are others who are in the same position as ourselves, and we're able to exonerate them because they have a new baby, but somehow that understanding isn't always applied to ourselves. A third common thinking trap is predictions, and these occur when we jump to conclusions about what someone may be about to do, think or say, without actually asking them. So your manager comes into the office and is in a really bad mood and barely acknowledging anyone in the room. They go straight to their desk, briefly passing yours just to say that they want to speak to you later. You then spend the rest of the day thinking, well, what did I do? What are they going to say to me? Am I going to lose my job or be reprimanded for something that I've done? What have I done? I can't think of anything. It makes it extremely hard to work until your meeting. And then when you get there, they say, oh, congratulations, you've done great work. If you'd asked earlier on, you might have found out that they just had an argument with one of their children and their bad mood was nothing to do with you. So are you good at forgiving others or even forgiving yourself? One day, a group of students were asked to think of everyone that they felt had wronged them in some way and bring in a potato in a backpack to kind of represent each person. They almost all brought in full bags, and they were then asked to carry them everywhere for a week, never putting the backpacks down. Over time, the packs became putrid as the potatoes started rotting, and that made them miserable, and it also made other people start to avoid them. Their teacher explained that this is the price you pay for holding on to resentment. Holding on to resentment is likely to have a much more negative effect on you and your emotional resilience than it ever will have on the person you are angry with. They may not have even noticed or indeed care how you are being impacted. When you consider your connections, do you have anyone that you may need to forgive? Or do you need to forgive yourself for something that's happened to you so that you're able to move your life forward freely? Healthy relationships develop with warmth, openness, straightforwardness, and consideration. You can check whether these aspects in yourself are helping or hindering you from the answers that you have provided in the iResilience questionnaire. In this second section, we consider the role of social media, which is an increasingly dominant form connecting us into many people's lives. For some, it has a really positive role, for instance through lockdown. But is it also worth considering if there is a downside? Research is increasingly finding both the amount or quality of the time spent engaging with it can have a really adverse impact when it becomes a default action to check what is going on. A study of students from Glasgow University, called the #State of Mind report, found that those using it for more than 3 hours each day had doubled their risk of mental health problems. So if any of the following resonate with you, it may be time to consider your relationship with the apps that you turn on in the quieter moments. So here we are. The list is: you compare yourself to others unfavourably, you have experienced cyberbullying, poor responses to your postings, or you feel that you have lost control over what is being posted or said about you on social media. It is a distraction from the work that you're doing. So much time is spent watching what others are doing that you have no time for self-reflection. So are you checking social media last thing at night or first thing in the morning, or even when you're awake in the night? Have you found that your anxiety is worsening the more you use social media, or becomes really intense when you're not able to access it for short periods of time? Here are some tips for weaning yourself off from, or at least reducing, your social media use. Turn off your notifications so that you don't check your phone each time it makes a noise to see why. Track how much you're using it and put in some slowly reducing limits. Focus on quality rather than quantity. Remove some of the apps from your phone for a few days to break the habit. And don't bring your phone into the area where you sleep. It may be that you use it as an alarm as well, in which case try and find some kind of alternative. Finally, we consider the role of alcohol in helping or hindering our resilience. It's sometimes the coping mechanism we turn to when we're feeling low or stressed. It can be a reason to relax, feel uninhibited, socialise with others, or reward ourselves after a hard day's work. However, prolonged heavy use can impact our resilience levels in a number of ways, for instance by exacerbating low mood, causing sleep disruption as the sugar metabolises if we are drinking at night. It may also have a part to play in any relationship problems. So it's estimated by Public Health England that approximately 10 million people in the UK drink at levels that pose a risk to their health, and 1.6 million are dependent, feeling the need to address their drink withdrawal before they can properly function at all. Both these statistics are currently rising. Alcohol can make you put on weight without realising, because there's 160 calories in an average glass of wine and 250 in a pint of beer. That's the same as a small cake or a burger, respectively. So here are some tips for helping you to cut down. Might any of these be useful for you? Become aware of your triggers to drink. It's associated with something such as a particular time or a place. Why do you want to drink? Is anyone around you impacted by your actions? Writing them down can help us to become more conscious when we are in danger of relaxing into drinking, and intentionally consider an alternative. You could consume a large glass of water before drinking, so you don't use alcohol to quench your thirst. It can also be helpful to alternate water with your alcohol throughout an evening. Be honest with yourself and keep a track of how much you really are drinking. Calculate how much you want to spend on alcohol and stick to it. Being connected is a fundamental need in all of us, and therefore a key part of our resilience. And here we've considered some areas that may impact our ability to connect. The exercises in this section considered the quality and breadth of our connections, our skills at actively listening, the common unhealthy thinking traps that can impact our relationships, and the role of both social media and alcohol in both helping and hindering our resilience. You may wish to revisit this and pause the video in any of the sections that you recognise may be helpful to give it some more attention.